In a packed courtroom, the gavel slammed down, echoing like a thunderclap. At the back, a row of officers exchanged smirks, their confidence palpable. It was all a performance, a carefully orchestrated show, but no one in that room could have predicted how much they were about to lose. Power can shift in an instant, and those who believe they've won are often the least prepared for what comes next. Let us know in the comments below. Have you ever seen someone get exactly what they deserved when they least expected it? The grip on Maya Carter's wrist was tight too tight. She didn't flinch, didn't pull away, but the officer behind her twisted the cuffs anyway, as if she posed some kind of threat. "Keep your mouth shut," he growled, pressing his knee into her back as he shoved her into the patrol car. Maya breathed through the discomfort, her gaze fixed ahead. She could already see the headlines forming, another scandal brewing, another name they'd try to erase. The university campus blurred past as the car sped away, leaving behind a stunned crowd of students. A black woman, a distinguished guest lecturer, arrested mid-sentence seat was the kind of scene that demanded attention. Phones were out, cameras flashing, murmurs thick with disbelief. But Maya knew how this game worked. The more they controlled the story, the less the truth mattered. The officer in the driver's seat, a burly man with a buzz cut, kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror. His partner in the passenger seat chuckled softly. "Crazy how easy it is, huh?" The driver, Officer Malone, said. His partner shook his head. "Didn't even have to try. Some people just make it too easy." Maya tilted her head slightly. What exactly was easy? Malone grinned, pulling a small plastic bag from his vest pocket and holding it up between two fingers. "White powder, sealed tight. Caught red-handed," he said. Maya's eyes flicked to the bag, then back to him, her expression calm, deliberate, like a professor waiting for a student to realize they'd miscalculated on a test they were certain they'd aced. "Funny," she said. "That wasn't in my hands a minute ago." Malone's grin widened. "You sure about that?" She didn't respond. She didn't need to. The city skyline loomed outside the window, streetlights flashing by in rapid succession. The police station wasn't far, but Maya knew she wouldn't be there long. Men like these never did their research. The car rolled to a stop at the precinct. Maya was pulled out, her boots scraping the pavement, but her face remained unreadable. She'd been through worse. Inside, the officers processed her like any other suspect. Mugshot, fingerprints, the usual questions. "Name?" the officer behind the desk asked. She tilted her head. "You didn't check my ID?" He snorted. "You'll be in the system soon enough." Maya watched as he typed something into the computer. A second later, his smirk vanished. His shoulders stiffened, his eyes darting up to hers, a flicker of confusion giving way to something like fear. Give me a second," he muttered, pushing back from the desk. Malone frowned, stepping closer to the screen. "What's the holdup?" The officer swallowed. "I think we need the captain." Malone's brows furrowed. "For what?" Before he could get an answer, a door swung open. A tall, broad-shouldered man in a crisp uniform stepped out, his eyes locking onto Maya. She held his gaze, unflinching. He exhaled sharply. "Oh, hell." The other officers froze. The ones who'd been joking, laughing, acting like this was just another routine bust, they all fell silent. Maya raised a single brow. "Problem, Captain?" Silence. Malone shifted uncomfortably. "Wait, what's going on?" The captain ignored him, stepping closer, his eyes flicking to the screen before landing back on Maya. "I'm going to need to make a call," he muttered. Maya let a slow, knowing smile tug at her lips. "Yeah," she said. "You do that." For the first time since they'd cuffed her, the room felt different. The officer's smug certainty was cracking, and Maya Carter? She was just getting started. The holding cell's walls were cold, the air heavy with the scent of sweat and regret. Maya sat on the metal bench, her posture relaxed, almost casual, as if she were waiting for a delayed flight rather than locked in a cage. The other women in the cell glanced at her, then returned to their own thoughts. No one spoke. For Maya, this was just another move in the game. A heavy clang echoed as the cell door opened. "Carter," an officer barked. "You've got a visitor." She didn't rush, didn't make it easy for them. She took a slow breath, rolled her shoulders, and only then stood. The officer wasn't one of the men who'd arrested her. He was younger, fresh-faced, with a hint of unease in his stance, the kind of guy who joined the force thinking he'd make a difference. Maya had seen his type before. They either toughened up or burned out. He led her down a narrow corridor, the buzz of fluorescent lights humming overhead. The precinct wasn't large, just another gear in a corrupt machine that had been grinding for decades. They stopped at a small room with a steel table and 2 chairs. Maya's hands were still cuffed, but she didn't complain as she was guided inside. Seated at the table was a man in a wrinkled suit, his tie loosened to feign casualness. He wasn't casual. His face carried the weight of too many cases, too many lives shuffled through the system like they didn't matter. "Ms. Carter," he greeted, nodding. "I'm James Larson, assigned to your case." Maya sat across from him, her expression neutral. Larson glanced at the officer, waiting for him to leave, but the man just crossed his arms. "She's cuffed," he pointed out. Larson sighed. "I'd still prefer to speak with my client alone." The officer hesitated, then exhaled sharply and stepped out, shutting the door. Larson rubbed his hands together, gathering his thoughts. "All right," he began. "First, the charges." "They planted it." Maya cut in, her voice calm but firm. Larson blinked. "Excuse me." "The drugs." "They planted them." Larson's mouth pressed into a thin line. "Ms. Carter, I understand this is stressful, but—" "I'm not stressing," she interrupted. "I'm informing you." Larson rubbed his temple, his patience fraying. "Look, I'm not here to judge. My job is to get you the best outcome. A plea deal might be in your best interest." Maya tilted her head. "And what exactly am I pleading to?" He hesitated. "Possession with intent to distribute." She laughed, short and sharp, not because it was funny but because it was absurd. "Tell me," she said, leaning forward. "Do I look like a dealer to you?" Larson didn't answer. Maya sat back. "No, I didn't think so." Larson sighed, his frustration growing. "I'm trying to help you." "No," she corrected. "You're trying to move my case along as quickly as possible so you don't have to waste time on it." That hit a nerve. His jaw tightened. "Ms. Carter, if this goes to trial, you could be looking at serious time." "And if it does," she said, "I'll walk out free." Larson frowned. "You sound very sure of yourself." She met his gaze. "I am." Silence stretched between them. Larson leaned back, eyes narrowing. "You're not just a university guest, are you?" Maya didn't blink. "What do you think?" Larson exhaled, shaking his head. "All right, no plea deal. But that means we fight this." A slow smirk tugged at her lips. "Good," she said. "Now let's talk about how we're going to take them down." Hours passed, and the precinct's atmosphere shifted. Maya was back in the holding cell, but the air was thick with tension. Officers exchanged glances, their conversations hushed. Something had changed, and Maya could see it in their stiffened postures. They were nervous. The door buzzed open again. "Carter." She stood, her movements deliberate, her head held high. This time, the officer didn't grab her roughly. He didn't need to. She walked willingly, her posture relaxed. They led her down a different hallway, past cluttered desks and half-empty coffee cups. At the far end, near the captain's office, stood Malone, the officer who'd planted the drugs. His earlier smugness was gone. Maya smiled. The captain's office was larger than the interrogation room, but felt cramped, lined with filing cabinets and a heavy oak desk. Behind it sat Captain William Hayes, his graying temples and permanent scowl giving him the look of a man who'd seen too much. Maya didn't sit. Neither did he. "Maya Carter," Hayes said slowly, his eyes locked on hers. She met his gaze. "Captain." He exhaled, shaking his head. "You're a pain in my ass, you know that." She smiled faintly. "Only when people make bad choices." Hayes stared at her for a long moment, then reached into his desk drawer. Maya didn't flinch as he pulled out a thick folder and tossed it onto the desk. "Your file," he said. Her brow arched. "Fast." Hayes exhaled sharply. "Who the hell are you, Carter?" She lifted a shoulder. "That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?" His jaw clenched. "We checked your ID, checked your history. Nothing. You're a mystery. You don't exist." Maya chuckled softly. "Oh, Captain," she murmured. "You really should have done your homework." The tension in the room thickened. She leaned forward, her voice low. "Because by the time you figure it out," she said, "it'll already be too late." Hayes didn't move, didn't speak. Deep down, he knew this wasn't just some professor they could bury under false charges. They'd arrested the wrong person, and now they were in deep trouble. The precinct was no longer a place of order, it was a place of whispers. The usual sounds of ringing phones and clacking keyboards were drowned out by unease. Maya stood in the captain's office, her wrists still cuffed, but the balance of power was shifting. Captain Hayes sat behind his desk, eyes flicking between her and the folder. The weight of what he'd discovered pressed into him. "You're not just some professor," he muttered. Maya's smile was slow, knowing. "I never said I was." Hayes exhaled, fingers tapping the desk. He'd seen it the moment her name was cross-checked through the right databases, buried under clearance levels far beyond his reach. It had all unraveled. But others in the department didn't know yet, those who thought this was a routine arrest, an easy case to sweep away. The officers who'd planted the evidence, who'd cuffed her, who'd smirked like she was just another statistic, they still believed they'd won. Hayes lifted the folder and slammed it shut, leaning forward. "You're FBI." Maya didn't answer. She didn't need to. His voice dropped. "How high up?" She tilted her head. "You tell me." Hayes hesitated, then said, "Director." The word hung in the air, making the room feel smaller, the air heavier. Maya Carter, the woman in cuffs, wasn't just an agent. She was the one giving orders, the one they'd arrested. He leaned back, rubbing his face. Jesus Christ. Outside, laughter carried from the break room. The officers who'd orchestrated this were celebrating, oblivious to what was coming. Hayes swallowed hard. "This is bad." Maya's brow lifted. "For who?" His silence was answer enough. She sat back, giving him space to process. Hayes wasn't a fool who knew when a situation had gone past the point of no return. This was career-ending. "Tell me something," Maya said, her tone light. "Did you know?" His eyes snapped to hers. "Did I know what?" "That your officers were dirty." His jaw tightened. "I run a clean department." She gave a soft hum, glancing through the office window. She could see the men who'd arrested her, laughing, patting each other's backs like they'd won a prize. "No," she said, turning back to Hayes. "You don't." He bristled. "You don't know anything about my precinct." "I know 2 of your officers planted drugs on a federal official," she said. Hayes flinched. "I know the prosecutors already drafted a charge sheet." His silence stretched. "And I know," she continued, her voice dropping, "that if I don't walk out of here in the next 5 minutes, I'm making a phone call that'll bring down your entire department." Hayes's hands curled into fists on the desk. The weight of the situation had settled on him. If this got out, if Washington caught wind, his career wouldn't just end, it would be obliterated. His officers, his precinct, his badge, everything would burn. Maya watched the realization hit him like a slow-moving train. Then, with a reluctant breath, he pulled a key from his belt and unlocked her cuffs. The moment the metal clicked open, Maya rubbed her wrists, exhaling softly, not in relief, because she'd never been worried, but in quiet satisfaction. She stood. Hayes remained seated, watching her like a man who'd seen the ground split open beneath him. "I suggest," Maya said smoothly, "you call those officers in before I do." Hayes didn't argue. He reached for the intercom. "Officers Malone and Rivera, report to my office immediately." The laughter in the break room stopped. Maya stepped out of the office, onto the main precinct floor. All eyes turned to her. She didn't speak, she didn't need to. The officers who'd arrested her, Malone, the bald one, and Rivera, his grinning partner, walked toward the office, their confidence intact, still believing they had the upper hand. Then they saw her, free of cuffs, and their faces changed. Rivera slowed. Malone's smirk faltered. Maya's expression remained neutral as they passed, but as they stepped into the captain's office, she turned slightly. "Enjoy it," she murmured. Malone hesitated. "Enjoy what?" She met his gaze, her eyes dark and unwavering. "The last 5 minutes before your career ends." Malone's mouth opened, but before he could respond, Hayes's voice barked, "Shut the door." It slammed shut behind them. Maya scanned the precinct floor. Other officers avoided her gaze, some whispering, some staring, confusion and unease settling over them like fog. Then, from the far end of the room, a voice called out, "Director Carter." The room froze. Maya glanced over her shoulder. A man stood in the entrance, dressed in a dark suit, posture straight, professional, a federal agent. He held up his badge. "Ma'am, we're here to take you home." A slow smile touched Maya's lips. She nodded once, stepped forward, and walked out of the precinct. Behind her, the walls of corruption were already crumbling. The ride to the federal building was quiet, the weight of the last few hours pressing into the space between Maya and the agent beside her. City lights blurred past, neon streaks against the SUV's tinted windows. She flexed her wrists, still feeling the phantom weight of the cuffs. "You good, Director?" the agent driving asked, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. Maya didn't answer immediately, her fingers tapping lightly against her knee, the only sign of the calculations running through her mind. "I will be," she murmured. The car pulled into an underground garage, security personnel already waiting. The moment she stepped out, agents stood at attention, some relieved, others furious. None asked what had happened, they already knew. A man in a tailored Navy suit stepped forward, his expression tight but controlled. "Director Carter," he said. "The Attorney General is waiting." She nodded and walked past, taking the private elevator to the top floor. The doors slid open, revealing a glass-walled conference room overlooking the city. Seated at a mahogany table was the Attorney General, an older man with graying hair and tired eyes, and beside him, a woman in a sleek black suit, head of Internal Affairs. Neither looked pleased. Maya walked in, slow and deliberate, and took the empty seat across from them. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the Attorney General exhaled sharply, placing his hands on the table. "You've caused quite a mess, Director." Maya met his gaze, unflinching. "No," she corrected. "I exposed one." The woman from Internal Affairs leaned forward, hands clasped. "The officers who arrested you are in holding," she said. "Their captain tried to shield them, but after seeing your file, he folded. They've admitted to planting evidence, taking bribes, coercing witnesses. The entire precinct is under investigation." Maya allowed herself a small, satisfied nod. "And the prosecutor?" The Attorney General exchanged a glance with Internal Affairs. "Suspended, pending review," the woman answered. "He was eager to fast-track your case." "Too eager. Turns out he's had a history of suspiciously high-profile convictions." Maya leaned back. The pieces had fallen into place faster than she'd expected. It was one thing to expose street-level corruption. It was another to uncover a network, a machine designed to funnel people into a system built to break them. "This won't be the last time this happens," she said. The Attorney General sighed. "No, it won't." His eyes studied her carefully. "You understand the gravity of what you did." Maya tilted her head. "Clarify." "You turned a local incident into a federal scandal," he said. "The media will pick this up. The public will demand accountability. This isn't going away quietly." Maya smiled, slow and sharp. "Good." The Attorney General pinched the bridge of his nose. "You realize the kind of enemies you're making, right?" Her expression didn't change. "If they're my enemies," she said, "they were never the right people to begin with." Silence stretched. Then Internal Affairs nodded slightly. "Your move, Director." Maya inhaled deeply, feeling the tension in her body settle. "My move," she repeated. She stood, adjusting her blazer's cuffs. "Get the press ready." Both frowned. "You're going public?" the Attorney General asked. Maya gave a small, knowing smile. "I was arrested in broad daylight," she said. "Cameras were rolling before they put me in the car. The world's waiting for an answer." He hesitated, but knew she was right. The story had already escaped containment. The only way forward was through. Maya turned toward the window, looking out over the city. It looked different now, not broken, just in need of a reckoning. Hours later, Maya stood at a podium, a row of microphones before her. The room was packed with reporters, cameras flashing, the air thick with anticipation. She adjusted the mic. "Good evening," she began, her voice steady, carrying through the room. "As many of you know, I was unlawfully arrested yesterday." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, but she continued. "The officers responsible are in custody. An investigation into systemic corruption within the precinct is underway. But let's be clear, this isn't just about one case. This is about a pattern that's existed for far too long." The murmurs grew louder, cameras zooming in. "Every day, innocent people disproportionately black and brown are funneled into a system designed to work against them, not because they've committed a crime, but because corruption thrives when no one's watching." She paused, letting her words settle. "Well, I'm watching." A hush fell over the crowd. "I may be director of the FBI," she said, "but this isn't just my fight. It's our fight. It's time we stop treating justice like it belongs to the privileged few. Maya looked directly into the cameras. This ends now. The room erupted into questions, voices overlapping, but Maya stepped back from the mic, walking off the stage as agents flanked her. Her job wasn't done. It was just beginning.